Hi and welcome. In this video I'll be removing the front cover off my Moto Guzzi Le Mans 1000, undoing the 3 nuts and removing the cam chain and sprocket assembly. I'm doing it because I need to get the camshaft out. I've already removed the alternator and you can see how that's done in a previous video. Okay, let's get into it. First thing I'll do is take the tacho drive off. So just undo the cable. That out of the way, and now take the drive out. Probably don't have to take this out, but I'm going to take it out anyway. Needs a bit of a clean. Now I'm going to take this main frame bolt out. I've put a jack underneath the sump just to support it a little bit. Just use this pin punch to just drive the axle out. So I drive the bolt out. Now we need to remove all the bolts. Now it's time to remove the nuts. I'll take the camshaft one off first. I've put a rod through my gudgeon pin on my conrod. You can of course use the rear brake or some other method of locking up the crank before doing this. Some people advocate heating the nut first, others advocate using an impact gun on it. I haven't got enough room in here with the wheel on, so we'll give a try with just a breaker bar and a 27mm socket. I've just machined the end down a little bit to make it a bit of a better fit, though this nut has been off before, so I've loosened that one. Now I'll do the crank. Now it's time to take the crankshaft nut off. This is actually a spline nut. There's 4 splines and there's a special tool for that which has 4 splines on it. This one I bought off eBay from the UK. I actually had to machine it down a little bit. It was too snug a fit. Whether it was because the nut was a little bit damaged or not, I don't know. Now there's also a tab washer on one of these splines here. Now I've already knocked that back. So now all we have to do is take the nut off. Well, that went rather badly. I've just broken my brand new special tool. One of the pins has snapped off and the other three are bent. That nut must be on really tight. I guess it's on to plan B. Well, here it is, plan B. I've just taken this cold chisel and I've ground a notch in the end of it, which is designed to sit at around a 35 to 40 degree angle in the splines on the nut, and that should, with a bit of bashing with the hammer, get that nut off. You can thank Bill Finnegan for this idea. Well, we're nearly ready to take the sprockets and the chain off. I've taken the three nuts off, but we just need to pull back on this chain tensioner to allow everything to slide off. I thought first of all that I might be able to take the chain tensioner off by itself, but it looks like it won't come off easily unless the sprockets are out of the way. So what I've done is I've made up this little clip here, this little C-clip out of a bit of channel, and this will go between the chain tensioner and the outside wall of the timing chest. And I thought that just might work for me to just hold the chain tensioner back just enough to allow me to slide everything off. Got plenty of slack now. Before removing the chain and sprockets, it's a good idea to rotate the engine over so that the two timing marks line up. Now these upper two sprockets are loose, but the one on the oil pump is just a little bit tight. So I'm just going to use a puller on it. I'm just going to screw the nut on here to help support the end of the shaft. See, the nut wants to go in that way. Now it shouldn't require that much to get it off. Here it comes. Now it does help if you try and keep everything together. Chain and sprockets engaged in the same alignment when you put it aside. That way, if you're just, say, taking the oil pump off or taking the camshaft out, you can actually put this back pretty much in one piece. And just a quick note, not to forget the two keys, the one on the crankshaft and the one on the oil pump. They'd be pretty easy to lose, so just put them aside somewhere. Before we go, I thought I'd just have a look at the special tools. This is the one I bought off eBay, with the pin broke and the other 3 pins bent. You know, it's really not designed to be used with a breaker bar, I suspect. If it had been, this inner section here should have been machined closer to the nose of the crankshaft so that you could support the tool on the nose of the crankshaft a bit. But like all these tools, you know, with a bit of spring in these pins, it's likely to want to cam out. Now, Bill Finnegan doesn't recommend using an impact gun on the crankshaft or the camshaft sprocket. He says you do run the risk of damaging internal components because impact guns do put a high shock loading on components. So he does prefer to use a breaker bar. So maybe this tool would have been okay on an impact gun, but certainly it didn't work on my breaker bar. Now, Steindents do make a slightly different tool where the pegs are actually shrouded, so there's a ring of steel around them, and it also has the smaller diameter. Maybe that tool would have worked best with a breaker bar, and maybe I'll look at getting one of those for putting the nut on. Obviously, I'll have to replace that nut because I've damaged it with this cold chisel. Now, certainly the cold chisel idea that Bill had was a really good way of getting that nut off, and it certainly worked a treat. Now, the camshaft nut was a lot easier to get off, and all I've done with this is machined the tapered end off this. This is a 27mm long series socket. I just machined the end off a bit just to allow it to grip the nut a little bit better, and certainly that worked fine. And to hold the cam chain tensioner back, which in my case is an aftermarket one, I just used this little bit of C-channel, which I've cut down. It was a little bit longer. This is 29mm across. I don't know whether that's a standard size or not. That's just what I happen to have in my scrap box. So I was really pleased with the way that worked out. And certainly, you know, with the right tools, this job really isn't that hard. Well, that's it. Cam chain and sprockets removed from my Moto Guzzi Le Mans 1000. I hope you got some value out of that. If you have any hints or tips on how I could have done it differently or avoided some of the pitfalls, let me know in the comments below. And I'll see you next time.